Hello everyone, this is Giraffe. Today we are going to talk about the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Around 2200 to 2300 years ago, there was an inventor and popular science writer in Byzantium named Philo. He usually worked on mechanical research and wrote some books on mechanics, such as Mechanical Principles. So people called him Mechanical Philo. This Mechanical Philo, besides studying mechanics, also enjoyed traveling. He traveled extensively and later compiled a book called The 7 Wonders of the World. It documented 7 incredible man-made marvels in the world. However, the original book was lost, and its existence was only known because later writers quoted from it. The 7 wonders recorded in the books are the Pyramids of Giza, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus, the Statue of Zeus at Olympia, the Mausoleum at Halicarnassus, the Clusters of Rhodes, and the Lighthouse of Alexandria, 7 in total. The order I just mentioned is chronological for these 7 wonders. The oldest is the Pyramids, from 4,600 years ago, and the most recent is the Lighthouse of Alexandria, from around 2,200 to 2,300 years ago. The literal translation of the book's original title is not The 7 Wonders of the World. That's our translated version. The original title was The Must-See Sights of the World. It was a travel guide. It didn't include Asia, did it? No, it just focused on that region. However, because the things recorded in the book were so grand, each representing the pinnacle of human wisdom and agricultural engineering, later generations translated it as the 7 wonders of the world. Among these 7 wonders, except for the oldest pyramids, the other 6 no longer exist. Could it be that Philo simply made it up? That he fabricated or imagined these things? Probably not. There are 3 reasons. First, the 7 wonders he recorded weren't mentioned only in his book. Other writers also referred to them, though he was the one who compiled the list. Second, 6 of the 7 wonders overlapped with Philo's lifetime. That means he likely saw 6 of them while he was alive. He could definitely have seen them if he wanted to. Third, among the 7 wonders, aside from the pyramids, the ruins of 4 of the other 6 have been found. At first, people thought they didn't exist, but excavations started over 100 years ago, and their remains were discovered everywhere, proving they truly existed. Among the 7 wonders, the only one that didn't overlap with his lifetime and hasn't been found is the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. The Hanging Garden of Babylon sounds incredibly majestic by name, just like Laputa, a city in the sky. So it's not surprising that no ruins have been found. It wasn't on the ground. It is the greatest mystery among the 7 wonders. Its exact location remains unknown till this day, and it's even uncertain whether it has ever existed. The problem is that while the ruins of Babylon itself have been found, no traces of the Hanging Gardens have been discovered within them. Moreover, many clay tablets unearthed at the Babylonian ruins document events that took place there, but none mentioned the Hanging Gardens. Therefore, the existence of this wonder is highly controversial. Some even say it was purely imaginary and could never have existed. Babylon was part of the Mesopotamian civilization, a city-state located in the region between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. In ancient times, a city often constituted an independent kingdom, so it was essentially a state in itself. Initially, this city was quite small, but after continuous growth and development, it gained independence over 3,800 years ago. The leader who guided the city to independence and became its first king was Hammurabi. The same Hammurabi who later promulgated the Code of Hammurabi, known for its principle of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. After establishing the old Babylonian kingdom, Hammurabi declared himself the successor of Eridu. This brings up the term Eridu, and in turn connects to the Anunnaki, as we mentioned in our previous video. According to the Sumerian king list and other clay tablet records, around 400,000 years ago, a group from the planet Nibiru descended to Earth. They were the Anunnaki, led by Anu, with the rest collectively called the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki were all giants with lifespans of 360,000 years. When they arrived on Earth, they landed in southern Iraq, where they later built the city of Eridu, the first city in human civilization, Eridu. Originally considered mythology, the ruins of Eridu were later discovered, matching the descriptions on the clay tablets. Why did the Anunnaki come to Earth? According to Chichen, who interpreted the clay tablets, he analyzed that Nibiru's mass was continuously decreasing. To save their own home planet, they came to Earth to mine gold. This actually makes sense because so far we have only discovered the element gold on Earth. We have explored many planets, but only Earth has gold. The Moon has plenty of titanium, but no gold. Mars has various chemical elements, but no gold. Gold is an exceptionally rare substance in the universe. Yet, Earth has it in abundance, so their choice to mine gold on Earth seems reasonable. Although NASA has speculated that some asteroids may contain gold, there is no definitive evidence to date. When the Anunnaki descended, not all of them came down. In fact, Anu himself did not descend. He sent a team, a gold mining crew. The leader of this crew was Anu's eldest son, Enki, the one who loved humans. Yes, the Enki who created humans. He was Anu's son, but not the heir, born to a concubine, not the primary wife. According to Sumerian clay tablets, Enki had a serpent-like lower body and was associated with water and knowledge. His wife, who was also his sister, Ninhursag, also had a serpent-like lower body. This aligns with the figures of Fuxi and Nuwa in Chinese mythology. How did Enki create humans according to mythology? It is said that he possessed a tool that could observe and alter the smallest structures of life, a double helix structure, essentially capable of adjusting DNA. This is how he created humans and simultaneously human civilization, the earliest human civilization, the Sumerian civilization. This explains why the Sumerians, upon their emergence, already knew how to write, practiced medicine, agriculture, possessed astronomical knowledge, had a concept of time, and more, all because of Enki. This is actually one of the great mysteries in human history. The oldest cities we have excavated appeared fully developed, with advanced knowledge from the start. In contrast, some later civilizations had no writing or were relatively backward, relying solely on hunting without agriculture. The Sumerians, however, emerged already knowing everything. The reason is that Enki brought this knowledge. He brought civilization. So what does Sumer mean in Sumerian civilization? It means the line of the civilized rulers, implying that a ruler brought civilization, which then flourished in this land. The Sumerians didn't call them the Sumerians. They refer to themselves as the black-headed people. You can imagine what they look like. Black-haired. The emphasis is that only their heads are black, though the reason remains unclear. After establishing this civilization and building the city of Eridu, the first human king emerged. This king was the first on the Sumerian king list, named Alulim. Alulim reigned for 28,800 years. This length of reign seems incredible, but considering of their lifespan of 360,000 years, it actually makes sense, equivalent to about 4 years in our lifespan scale. Quite reasonable, right? So what was the relationship between Alulim and Enki? Mythology states that he was an incarnation of Enki. After Alulim's 28,800-year reign, he passed the throne to the second king, Alangar, who reigned for 36,000 years. This continued for 8 generations, with the first 8 kings reigning for a total of 241,200 years. Then the Great Flood occurred. After the flood, the lifespan of these kings gradually became similar to those of ordinary humans. It was also after the Great Flood that Eridu began to decline. From that time onward, Babylon rose to prominence, another city. What does Eridu mean? It means the place of guidance. After Babylon rose, it conquered the original Sumerians and declared itself the successor of Eridu, establishing the Old Babylonian dynasty. What does Babylon mean? Babylon means gate of the gods. After the Old Babylonian dynasty lasted about 1,000 years, it was destroyed by the Assyrian civilization. The Assyrians stationed an army in Babylon, but this garrison rebelled, drove out the Assyrians, and established the new Babylonian Empire, also in Babylon. The Hanging Garden were most likely built during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar II, the most prosperous king of the new Babylonian Empire, for his beloved wife, around 2,600 years ago. So, who was his beloved wife? As I mentioned, the new Babylonian Empire was founded by a rebellious garrison. The leader of this rebellion was Nebuchadnezzar II's father. When his father rebelled, he allied with a foreign empire, the Medes. The two nations together drove out the Assyrians. Nebuchadnezzar II's wife was a princess of the Medes. Their alliance led to the expulsion of the Assyrians, and their marriage sealed the pact. This princess came from a land of lush mountains and clear waters, while Babylon was like a desert. She deeply missed her homeland. So the king built her a garden, a mountain-like structure, to comfort her homesickness. So what did this garden look like? According to ancient texts, the garden was built on a series of ascending terraces, resembling an ancient theater or hillside like a mountain. As for its height, historical accounts vary. Some say 20 meters, others claim 120 meters. The widely accepted estimate today is around 20 meters, equivalent to a 7 or 8-story building. The overall structure was quadrilateral, with each set measuring 4 plethra, an ancient unit of length. 4 plethra equal about 120 meters, roughly the length of a football field. So it was a square, 120 meters on each side and 20 meters high, somewhat like a large shopping mall. The multiple levels were supported by columns and arches, though the exact number of tiers remains unknown. It was built along the banks of the Euphrates River. Why by the river? For irrigation. The texts mention a concealed irrigation system capable of drawing water directly from the river to the topmost level, then circulating it downward to water each terrace. However, such a system would have been technologically impossible for that era. The idea of an automatic water lifting mechanism is hard to imagine structurally. Archimedes later invented a screw pump for water lifting, but that was over 200 years later. So the garden's irrigation system remains another mystery. What materials were used to build it? This is also uncertain. Large structures of that time were typically built with stones, but Babylon was located on an alluvial plain with no natural stone, only sand and silt. It's speculated that sun-dried mud bricks were used. Given the region's extreme heat and desert climate, mud could be molded, dried, and hardened into bricks, then stacked layer by layer to create such a massive structure. The garden was said to be filled with exotic flowers, rare plants, towering trees, and even cascading waterfalls, creating a heavenly paradise-like scene, like the flower dome in Singapore. Yes, very similar. From a distance, it was described as a vibrant green mountain rising above the city, floating over the flat barren, in a landscape with no tall buildings, where the horizon stretched flat and empty. This lush green hue would have stood in stark contrast to the hot, dry surroundings, visually striking and artistically breathtaking. The construction challenges of the Hanging Gardens seem quite different from those of the pyramids. The pyramids' challenge lay in moving and stacking massive stones to create heads. Yet the pyramids were solid structures. In contrast, the Hanging Gardens were hollow, an immensely difficult feat for that era. Without modern materials like cement or steel reinforcement, creating such a large, multi-tiered structure from bricks was extraordinarily complex. Another major challenge was high-altitude irrigation. How could water be continuously lifted over 20 meters into the air? It's hard to imagine. Some speculate it relied on manual labor, people carrying water or using simple lifting devices like shrouded. However it was done, it would have required relentless effort. Regardless of how it was built, the Hanging Gardens were undoubtedly a unique marvel in both architecture and horticulture for their time. An unparalleled vertical garden that fully deserved its place among the must-see sights. It was also the only garden among the Seven Wonders. Given its location in Mesopotamia, the cradle of human civilization, some have speculated that the Hanging Gardens might be the legendary Garden of Eden, with its towering trees and lush vegetation. It's possible, though, like Eden, no trace has been found. So what happened to the gardens? No historical records provide a clear account. They vanished without a trace. Some believed they were washed away by flooding of the Euphrates River, leaving nothing behind. Alright, that covers the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Second, the statue of Zeus at Olympia. It looked like this, and it once existed. This colossal statue stood inside the Temple of Zeus at the Olympia sanctuary. It was 14 meters tall, roughly equivalent to a 4-story building, and was the large indoor statue of its time. Among the Seven Wonders, it represented the pinnacle of art and craftsmanship, the most artistically refined of them all. This statue was the work of the ancient Greek sculptor Phidias, and was constructed around 457 BCE, making it roughly 100 years younger than the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. It was originally built in Olympia, the site of the ancient Olympic Games, inside the Temple of Zeus, where people could come to worship. Initially, the temple was empty, but later the architect was commissioned to create a colossal statue for it, and so he did. What made this statue remarkable wasn't just its size, but also the materials used. It wasn't made of stone or bronze. It was crafted from ivory and gold. The eternal framework was built from cedar wood, overlaid with ivory to form the body, while the clothing, scepter, and even the crown were made of gold. The statue sat on a throne itself, constructed from ebony, ivory, gold, and precious stones, extremely lavish. Due to its exceptional artistic value, the statue had a profound influence on later Western sculpture. Many subsequent Western statues took it as a model. For example, the statue in the Lincoln Memorial shares a similar seated pose and majestic presence. However, some critics pointed out a problem with the statue's design. Since it was seated inside the temple, some argue that if Zeus stood up, his head could hit the ceiling, an impractical detail, as it would be uncomfortable for him to remain seated forever. Shouldn't there be enough space for him to stand? But opposing artists argue that the imposing presence came precisely from filling the space. If there were too much empty room above, it would lose its grandeur and a sense of pressure. Besides the statue of Zeus, Phidias also created the statue of Athena, which looked like this. Though this is a replica, a one-to-one replica existed in the United States. The Athena statue was slightly smaller than the Zeus statue. He first created the statue of Athena, and then something went wrong. The statue used a large amount of gold, and when the accounts were tallied, the amount of gold that went into it didn't match the recorded quantity. When asked where the gold had gone, he couldn't explain. So he was exiled from Athens. Around that time, the people of Olympia reached out and said, "Come to us, we want to build an even larger statue here." After the statue of Zeus was completed, it stood for less than 1,000 years. In 462 CE, it was destroyed in a fire and was completely lost. Since it was made of wood and ivory, it burned away entirely. The gold might have survived, but everything else was gone. Less than 500 years after the statue was completed, around the year 0 CE, a figure emerged whose influence would lead to the statue's appearance: Jesus. With the birth of Jesus and the rise of Christianity, the region of ancient Greece was under Roman occupation. To consolidate power, the Roman Empire promoted Christianity, which forbade the worship of pagan idols, and the statue was banned. Was this considered pagan worship? Yes, it was ancient Greek religion. According to Christianity, Jesus is the one true God, so worshipping such a statue was forbidden. The temple of Zeus at Olympia was sealed off. However, the Roman Empire was clever. He recognized the statue's immense artistic value and admired its craftsmanship, so he secretly had it transported to Constantinople. Some emperors even considered replacing the statue's head with their own to enhance its grandeur, though this never actually happened. After being moved, the statue was kept hidden in a palace until a major fire in 462 CE destroyed it completely. The statue existed for just over 900 years, less than a millennium. When was the replica made? The replica of Athena statue was created in the 1990s. How did they know what it looked like? They based it on descriptions and imagination. This is likely what it resembled. We don't really know exactly. We don't actually know what the statue of Zeus looked like either. Descriptions mention it holding a statue in one hand, a scepter with an eagle in the other, but details are scarce. Since the statue was destroyed over 1,500 years ago, there are no surviving remains. This raises the question, did the statue really exist? It probably did, but there's no physical evidence. Initially, many doubted its existence because ivory, according to modern craftsmanship, couldn't be used to create something so massive. How could ivory be shaped into such a large body? Many suspected the statue was fictional, at least in terms of materials. For a long time, it was considered a myth. However, in the 1950s, while excavating the ruins of the Temple of Zeus, Phidias' workshop was discovered on the western side. Inside this workshop, they discovered a large number of molds, tools, and materials used in creating the statue, confirming that the statue must have existed. After all, the molds were there, so the statue was made using them. It also revealed for the first time how it was constructed. How was it made? Normally, ivory cannot be used to create something so large. You don't have ivory thick enough. And ivory isn't something you can just bend into any shape you want. Like shaping a rib, that's impossible. Nobody knew how he did it. But from examining the tools, they realized that in Phidias' hands, ivory was soft, not hard. It is unclear how he softened it, as the workshop didn't reveal the method. Experiments were conducted in labs to figure out how to soften ivory and then harden it again. It must have been soaked in something. Various materials were tried without success. until they discovered that vinegar works. The ivory was first sliced into thin sheets, then soaked in vinegar to soften it. Once soft, it was placed into molds. For example, to shape the chest, a chest mold was used, and the ivory sheets were layered inside. Once dried, they took on the desired shape. These pieces were then assembled and polished smooth, making the seams invisible. That's how it was done. Initially, it was impossible to imagine how such a thing could be made. Why use ivory in the first place? For nobility and luxury, this was the largest indoor statue of its time. So, only the finest and the most expensive materials were used. Today, we wouldn't use ivory, but back then, it was the ultimate material. They also learned that Phidias spent 7 years constructing this statue. This discovery illustrates an important principle. Just because something seems logically impossible to us doesn't mean it couldn't have existed. The technique of softening ivory was invented by Phidias himself, and it was lost over time, so no one else knew how to do it. We only figured it out through experimentation. Vinegar works, but we don't know if there were other methods. We only know vinegar could do it. So when we can't understand something, it might just be due to our lack of knowledge or perspective. Alright, that covers the Statue of Zeus at Olympia. About the rest of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, we will share in the next episode. Leave your thoughts to the comments. See you next time.